Hello and welcome to Activating Magic. I'm so excited. We're here with the fabulous Chen Lizra, who is joining us from Portugal and is an expert in embodiment, somatic practice, and embodying your divine feminine. So I'm really excited to dive into your take on magic and is it feminine and how do we cultivate that in our life. Tell me a little bit about your journey into this body of work.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me on today. I always love to share, the embodied wisdom and the feminine wisdom. So it's wonderful to be here with you today. Um, my journey, they always say the healers are the ones that have to heal themselves first, right? It's the journey of healing that leads you to where you are. It's not like I was planning on being what I am. It's more like a calling as I see it. It's a purpose that kind of revealed itself. My mom got mentally sick when I was 11 years old. And it was so rough growing up with a mentally ill mom that I just wanted to escape and I couldn't. And then my suicidal thoughts started because the reality was too harsh. Um, so that led on a whole journey of kind of spiraling down and depression. And as a kid, I didn't even know that suicidal
Mm,
thoughts were not normal until someone said to me one day, it's
mm,
like, oh my God, I had a suicidal thoughts. I went to a therapist. I was like, huh. You're not supposed to have
mm,
them. It was like this kind of an insight. So when I was 20, I reached rock bottom. It was like live or die. Like it was impossible to go on. And I had to make a decision. And the decision was to live, but to find a way to resolve this problem that was living inside of me. Anywhere I went, there it was, because it was inside me.
mm,
So it took me on a real world journey of trying to figure out how to heal my trauma. And my trauma is really deep, and I have PTSD from things that happened with my mom that were scary, that
yeah.
it's not that easy to heal that kind of a trauma. So I had to really go over decades and look for everything and turn every stone and try every workshop and try every specialist to figure out what works and work in that labyrinth. And it didn't work and work this way and that way till I figured out the labyrinth and how you get out of it, which is pretty hard to figure out, to be honest. So
Mm,
having done that, and it took me 3 decades, I was like, we shouldn't have to wait 3 decades and burn through. I figured it out. Why should someone else have to go through this, tough journey to get to where I got to? So I launched my company, Power Somatic Intelligence, giving people the possibility to come and find the answers a lot quicker and to save them the decades and the years. And I can say without a doubt that there's so many out there that I find that are so jaded because they try so many things
mm,
and very few things work with this kind of like, the kind of like deep trauma when you're really feeling like something's blocking you and it's like so rooted and you don't know how to heal it that you really got to know what you're doing. And I run into that a lot where people go like, well, what if it doesn't work for me? And they're so afraid to try. And it's like,
mm,
and I'm very good at what I do. And I'm not saying that from a place of ego. I'm
mm.
saying that from a place of experience of having to go through a lot to get to where I am today for it to work at that level. And I don't like to waste time, but at the same time, I respect the speed of the body. So that's kind of
Yeah.
like the nutshell of how I got
Mm,
here. It found me, I would
love
say.
that.
Mhm.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I'm sure there are people listening who have experienced that kind of trauma growing up and feel, immediately like, oh, there's hope. So thank you. You said figure out the labyrinth. You used the word labyrinth, and I would love to hear more about that. I don't hear people use that word related to trauma very often.
Yes, the reason I use the word labyrinth is because a lot of the times we want to resolve something in us, and then we try something. We go on that path and we go
Mhm.
like, oh, follow the rabbit, like in the Matrix, you're following the rabbit and you go like, oh, I ended up here, but it didn't resolve it. So then you got to come back to where you were. And then you go like, okay, maybe I'll take this one. And all of this labyrinth paths is basically the things you're trying. You're trying this specialist, you're trying this workshop, so you're trying and trying and trying and trying to figure out what would work.
Yeah.
And you're a lot of times ending up in a dead end because it didn't resolve it or it just resolved a small piece. For me, what I realized over time was that it wasn't getting resolved because there were so many pieces that got broken. So trust got broken, leaning on people got broken, boundaries got broken. So it
Yeah.
wasn't one piece that I needed to heal. I needed to change a lot of things, and that took time, but I also needed someone that would know what I needed. And finding one
Yeah.
person that saw the whole picture was at the time impossible. So I had to kind of
Mm.
find
Yeah.
different pieces and then put the whole picture back together. So to me, that was like walking in a labyrinth and trying to figure out which door, not which door, which path will get to eventually that exit.
I love that. I relate to that when I think of all of the different trainings I took to learn to create my retreat-based business, right? And all of the little pieces coming together, but no one was teaching the whole. So I love that you're bringing it together. Um, you use the phrase the speed of the body, and I feel
Wait,
like,
before you go to the speed of the body, I just want to say one more thing because you mentioned something here
yeah,
that's really important. You know, you talked about the putting it all together and so that we can see the full picture. I think that this is part of what, for me, as a somatic coach and a somatic intelligence specialist, is one of the key things. When I'm working, for example, one-on-one with clients, I developed a special a special method, and in it, I'm doing a somatic intelligence assessment. And in an hour and a half, I do an
mhm,
intake where I feel into you through you to your other generations, the one that came before you. And I can feel the blocks and the limits, and I can find
mhm,
very quickly in an hour and a half what's not working, what's blocked, and then the root cause of each one of them. And when you go straight to those places and you start to heal that foundation, the things at the top start to disappear. That's always the
mhm.
case. And it's like
Yes.
creating that, it's almost like I consider that to be an emotional blueprint. And the emotional blueprint is kind of like, a lot of people, we're talking about walking the labyrinth and not knowing where to go. When you can have an emotional blueprint of yourself and go, this is not working, and then find that thing. And then when you work on these disappear, that's extremely powerful. So to me, that's the power of that kind of knowledge and wisdom that grows over time, and the ability to in an hour and a half to grab that. I once one of my clients showed it to a therapist she was working with. She was like, whoa, like that was done in an hour and a half. She was like, yes, it's like she knew exactly what
Mhm,
needed to happen from there. It saves you a lot of time, but like we
mhm.
said before, coming back to the point that you raised, in the pace of the body, which is key.
Yeah. Yeah, I came in through a lot of mindset work, I would say. Are you familiar with landmark education at all?
I was with Landmark for 2 years. I was leading stuff. I was like,
Okay.
did their ILP.
I did the ILP. Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Okay, so we can relate to, I remember they always said, how you feel doesn't matter.
Mm.
I don't know if your center was big on that, but like how you feel doesn't matter. And I get it. Even now I get that they're moving people past places where they would get afraid and stop. But I believe how you feel matters a lot and it's
I
in your
agree.
body. So the moving at the speed of the body, I'd just love to hear a little bit more, what
Mm.
you've discovered about that when maybe our mind, we come up with a mantra or an affirmation, or we have a goal that's so important that we're willing to move past our fear, but the body didn't get the memo. How do
Well,
you think about that?
I find that there's two things that are run into. Either people run faster than what their body can, or people are afraid to go into something of fear that is going to go faster than what they can. And let me
Mhm.
explain both. So, first of all, it's like when I'm talking to people and at the beginning, like sometimes well, not sometimes, usually I say to them, like, ideally, by when do you want to overcome it? To understand their motivation to work on this, right? And a lot of times they'll go, yes, today. But I don't want to be pushed beyond, something that doesn't feel good to me now, where I'm not feeling in my body anymore. It's like, and there's this fear that someone's gonna push them beyond what they can. For me, when I talk, I always work in an embodied way. So if I say, how quickly do you want to move? It means all parts of you moving at the same time. Not part of you moves and part of you
Mhm.
feels behind and then you feel fragmented. That's not embodied work, right? So for me, that's given. But you see that fear comes up where people go like, yeah, but not too fast, not in a way that I can't digest
Mhm.
it. And then the other one that I said is people who run too fast. So one of the things I do a lot, especially
Mhm.
with high achieving women, they tend to like be like bulldozers, like go for what they want, they're
Yeah.
go-getters. And then you got to basically teach them to listen to what their body can. So every type of body has its own pace. So when I'm
Mhm.
working on healing nervous systems and learning how to regulate better, I'm really paying attention to how their body is speaking through feelings and sensations and what it can and cannot do. So, for example, if we go too quick into an emotion and that body feels that it's too quick, the body will go numb. That means it was too
Mhm.
fast. Someone else, that same pace will be great, right? It's not something that's a
Mhm.
generic rule that works for everybody. It's different from person to person. There's always in the body doors that are easy to come through and doors where it's just shut. You go knock, 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 no one's ever going to open. The trick is to learn how the body communicates with all these different practices. And then you find where the easy place to come in, where it's soft. Then it's like when you come in through there and you start to kind of expand that, it's like a flower
Mhm.
that just opens up, but in a soft way, in a non, I spoke to somebody who does similar work and he came from a very masculine, talked about breaking and it's like and doing and coming in and like and you were like, oh my goodness, like can I bring a little bit of that feminine divine to you right now? It's like we don't need to break anything. We need to come in soft. It's like the opposite. When there's trauma, you don't want it goes like, but you can prime them so they can meet it the way it is. I'm like, that's definitely the masculine, not the feminine.
I love that. I have so many questions. In my background as an engineer, one of the things that I've had to work with is I was in that super productive, get shit done, push past your limits, stay up extra late, put in the extra hours so you can get ahead kind of place. And my name actually means the soft and sweet one. And I
Cute.
remember I was like when I started my business and I learned this and I thought, that's not a good look. Like that's not a strength because I was so in the be productive, right? And so over the years I've embraced more of that softness and my pace, which sometimes is quick, but is often very methodical and slow and feeling in. Um, do you, I guess I'm curious your own journey with feeling your body and your pacing of your trauma. Like, have you found that you identify in one camp or the other, or some of each? Tell me a little bit about your
You
own
mean
journey
between
and then
masculine and femininity?
or more the pacing, right? Like pushing too fast or moving a little slower.
Mm. Um, I mean, I think that I tend to go pretty fast, but I've learned to really ground myself and land in a softer way. Like I cannot coach, for example, unless I'm really present with the person and it's like a
Mm,
meditative state. So even if I want to go fast, I
yeah.
cannot. At the same time, fast is not bad. Sometimes you need to go fast. Sometimes it's like you gotta be able
Yeah.
to, shift quickly and understand things. I think it really depends on the context for me. I'm very good now after years of practice. I've learned so much of the embodied femininity and I was more in my masculine and I've balanced them. I'm very good at jumping between masculine and feminine and using both. And there are times when you need your masculine, there's times when you need your feminine.
Mhm.
So I find that I'm more on the faster side, but I know very good how to balance the two.
Mm.
And I think a good
Beautiful.
example, from a personal perspective is like my partner and I are both Scorpios. So we are fire,
Mm.
which is exciting and really fun. But if we fight, that's intense. We don't fight a lot, but if we fight, and then if we lock up, bringing that feminine, I've learned to bring that feminine divine, that sabrosura, like all of that
Mm.
magic into that situation and like diffuse it rather than be right, which is so easy to
Mm.
just get stuck in
Mm.
the being right because you're strong, you're right, you're like this, and then it's like, no, no, no. Now it's like I kind of, it's like you have, those balls of the balls that you want to play with the, in the on the beach, for example, and it's like
Mhm.
and you open that thing and the air starts to go. It's like I do that, so it's like
Yes.
it's just to kind of like the whole balloon starts to so that in
Mhm.
itself, I think, is something that a lot of women have lost. that's really important to bring back, that embodied femininity, and that's that kind of magic.
What's one tip if someone's in that scenario where they're butting heads with their partner? What's one tip to diffuse it?
Get off your ego, stop being right, and understand. We like to say in Israel, he climbed on a tree, give him a ladder, help him get down. Right? It's like, if I'm being right and I'm so stuck, male ego is can be tough, and the women do have in them that capacity to bring the softer side. We've become so masculine in how we're driving things and success and leading, and which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. I love doing that as well. But you got to be able to bring the ladder and say, "Hey, baby, you want a hand?" And kind of caress him a little bit and bring that softness. And once he comes down, then you can have, let it soften up, and then you can have the tougher conversation, say what you want to say. But from two places that are locked in, you're not going to have that conversation anyway. So first soften it down, soften it out, and then have the conversation that you need to have. Then sit calmly and say what needs to be said in a rational way where you're communicating well. But it's not going to be from that locked place. And I think that women forgot that aspect of themselves. And how to bring it so that we balance the men. Men don't need more masculine energy. They don't need another man. They need a woman. And that doesn't take away from your strength in any way. It just makes you even stronger because you bring your special sauce, that unique, like the sabrosura. When you can bring that, it's like you can change negotiations. You can change, you can change so much. You can change, that will impact sales and marketing and negotiations and relationships and love, and like both in personal and in business.
That's beautiful. Bring the softness.
And the sweetness. You said your name has sweetness in it. Bring the sweetness.
Absolutely. So when we think, I'm thinking of my own work and my clients, and I've got this assessment that helps people identify their magic type, which this podcast is inspired by. And one of them is sensation magic. So when I hear you, speak about what finding the path in the body, I think it's, tons of sensation magic. And I have clients a lot who, one of the other magics is expansion. They might tend toward that, and sensation is really hard for them. They don't know what they're feeling in their body. They have no practice of connecting and being able to notice. So I guess I'm curious if someone, if someone has a lot of sensation magic, they are feeling maybe what their client has going on in their body, but the client can't feel it. What's your guidance around that? Helping someone who's maybe gone into numb as a state of being, they don't even notice. How do you help them start to, in baby steps, feel what they're feeling?
I do that on a regular basis all the time. Numbness, here's the trick. Numbness is a felt experience. That's where people get lost. People think that numbness is the lack of feeling, so they're not feeling anything, so we need to fix something. That's not it. They're feeling numb. And when there's a lot of wisdom in numbness. So numbness indicates to me that there was no room, like no safe space for whatever needed to be felt to be felt. But the only way that they could protect themselves is by going numb. And that's not even like a conscious decision. It's just a protection shield. So when someone goes numb, to me, it means that I need to create a lot more safeness for them to be received exactly as they're feeling. Because imagine that you come with your feelings and someone like comes to you in a way that is so overwhelming that the only thing that you could do is cut off, like you're not feeling anything. So if you come in any way trying to fix it, change it, push it, it's like you're doing the same thing. Instead, if you can just hold them with loving compassion and feel with them the numbness and allow them to be in numbness and to feel safe, the emotions, when you know how to do the work, I do this all the time, the emotions start to come back. I'm working right now with a client who's having a really hard time landing into what he's feeling. And we're doing that slow bit of restoration. That kind of restoration is very slow, So you have to also let the client know that it's going to be like really slow in how it's coming back. It's not, sometimes clients come and they want fireworks. They want it to be strong and big and fast. And, it's like, but it doesn't go like this. That kind of a nervous system needs tenderness and softness and safety and to go slow. And if you do, and you hold it the right way, the emotions and the sensations start to come back, and that freezing starts to disappear.
I love just, you had me at numbness is a felt experience. And there's a lot of wisdom in that. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Exactly. When we listen for the body tells you so much. For example, when I'm doing somatic intelligence assessment and I'm feeling through my clients to their ancestors, sometimes I come to a place and they say to me, I don't know anything about my grandparents from my, let's say, my dad's side. And they think that's it, that's where it's done. But it's not. Just the fact that they don't know anything about their grandparents tells you already a lot of the trauma. Because if the connection was normal and if everything was flowing as it should, you will always know. But when it's cut off like that, you already know that something pretty bad happened, something pretty strong happened for that to cut like this, where it's like you don't even want to be in touch. That tells you there's so much felt experience in that, in knowing that. So if we start to really feel into what is going on, even what is not being said says a lot. You can feel into that and feel the generational field, the collective field that's there. There's so much information in it, felt information.
Yeah, love that. When you said you hit your rock bottom around 20, and then you're kind of putting the pieces together. Can you share a little bit more about that? And, where did you go? What things did you try? What was that journey like for you?
Let's start with the fact that I don't even know where I got that from. But at 20, I sat on a street corner somewhere in the sun, and I asked myself inward, do you want to live or die? Do you want to live or die? And I think I sat there for an hour and I just waited for an answer. And I wasn't thinking, I was feeling. And I honestly don't know where that came from. But I was waiting for an answer to understand where I was going. And it wasn't like a dramatic thing or trying to, cry for help. It was just the truth. It was like, Chen, you can't go on like this. What do you want to do? And I was sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting and asking this question internally again and again and again. They say now I can say that when you sit with the question, the answer will come. Sometimes it takes us a while. I've been in meditation retreats doing, I studied Zen Buddhism in Japan, and I would sit for hours and hours and week after week and meditate. And ultimately, you know what you need to do. The answer is already there. Sometimes we're too afraid to see it. I don't know where that came to me from, but after about an hour, that was a short time now I know, because sometimes it can take, weeks or months or years. After an hour, I had this surge of feeling, oh my God, I haven't done this yet, and I haven't done this, and then I realized I wasn't done. And that's where that commitment to resolve it came from. So I said, then I can't go on like this. I got to find a solution. And then, my journey there were so many things. There's always been the body. So from dance to martial arts to, you name it. Like I've done so much. I think one of the biggest pieces for me, and I've done, talk therapy, and I've done family therapy system, and I've done somatic stuff, and I've done ayahuasca journeys. That's been one of the biggest change makers in my life. I can definitely say that the biggest impacts that I had on my healing was, one, the embodiment that I've learned in Cuba, and learning how to move through things that I was like, what is going on here? And why is this bringing parts of the trauma and healing it? This is why I started to investigate this. Cuba had things that disappeared in the world because we were chasing the modern society with all the material things. And suddenly you were in a place that didn't have any of the materials, and they went inward for emotional and embodiment. And something got conserved in this little bubble of communism that didn't exist anywhere else. So I spent 15 years investigating this and extracting what they had, which is what my method is about. And then the second part was the part I told you about, the felt experience. So learning how to witness people and how to, through the felt experience, to release things in their bodies that are trapped to the point that they could just, you know, feel it, but with me feeling with them and helping their body through that natural healing process, helping them discharge it for good. And the final piece was that I think is like the most important is the ayahuasca journeys. And this is something that, I mean, this year has been an honor of a lifetime. I wasn't even planning on that happening. And this shamanic family in Peru kind of adopted me into their center, and they're teaching me how to facilitate and drink medicine for others. And I've launched the retreats for that I lead in Peru in the Amazons, and seeing my clients just come back now and their whole lives changed. Each one of them was just, and what an honor to drink for them and hold that space for them where there's like, you're falling apart. You're like letting your deepest, like you have to really lean into who's there to be able to go through that. That was just an honor of a lifetime, both from the clients and the family that took me in and is like mentoring me. So.
Tell me more about what that means to drink for them. Are they also drinking or not?
Okay, so plant medicine, when you're drinking Mother Ayahuasca, the great mother, the wise mother, it's quite incredible because she speaks to you through feelings and sensations, through your own thoughts, and you know it's not you because you don't know these things. And any question you're gonna ask, you're gonna get the answers, and they work. Every time I go and I do ceremonies for myself, my life changes completely from one side to the other. And it's the best way to take out something that's so deeply rooted that couldn't come out easily. Like in 1 week, you can do something that takes years in any other format, even somatics, which is fast. Now, when you're drinking the medicine for yourself, you're drinking it with an intention that you speak to Mother Aya that activates the medicine towards what you want, and you're telling the shamans what you want, and they're singing their Icaros to activate it. So everything kind of goes, let's go into this, what the intention is, and let's drive the medicine towards that, and then the magic starts to happen. When the shamans always drink the medicine, they have to be on the medicine to be able to understand what is going on in the room and to support everybody and to be guided by Mother Aya on what needs to happen for each person. When you're facilitating, you're drinking the medicine and you're drinking it to the level where you're in the process for them, but you're not too much into your process, because if you're too much into your process, or if you're being so selfish to be busy with yourself, you can't be there for them. So you're asking Mother Aya as you're drinking the medicine to basically help you be present and to guide you on what they need. And then Mother Aya guides you. She tells you what people need, and she sends you to give them, like, help them with what they need, which is quite amazing because it's like the shamans guide you and they kind of mentor you. And then at the same time, Mother Aya tells you, oh, go to that person. They need this or do that, which to me was like, wow, like incredible.
That sounds
like,
amazing.
To be with a client who went through a sexual trauma, and the whole night where her body was shaking, releasing it, and like till it fully released it, and just holding that space and knowing that this person's life changed forever was just like, seriously, it was an honor of a lifetime.
That's beautiful. I'm hearing, I'm hearing it's amplified to a retreat without medicine where you've got to have done your work to hold space for others and not have it be about you. And this is, on Aya.
Amplified. Yeah, and here's the interesting thing. Like, I'm right now leading, for example, there's a new program that I launched called the Divine Connection. And the Divine Connection is all about coming through Kizomba dance, which is a very sensual partner dance, in order to learn how to connect through your body to feel, create security, create safety, create boundaries, but bring your sensuality, bring your seduction, learn how to seduce, but doing it through the body. We're so busy in our minds that what we're not doing enough is feeling enough and being in our bodies. That's a magical journey to be able to learn this. Like, that was inspired by what I went through in Cuba, because in Cuba, I was learning Cuban dance. And in Cuban dance, I learned all these things through the dance. And then I created my method, which you don't have to dance to learn it. But it's like, I met my partner through Kizomba dancing. So to
Mm.
be able to suddenly take people and go like, why not do it in a way that's also fun for us? I mean, when you look back, every culture in the world used to dance. You look at French, British, like you look Bridgerton time, everybody used to dance. We used to communicate in an elegant way, for example, in a dance. And then we lost contact with our bodies. So I was like, let's do a program where people come, and whether you're in a relationship and you want to work on the relationship or you want to get into the relationship because you struggle for this, let's teach you how to feel all of this and
Mhm.
change your embodiment. So it's dance with embodiment at the same time.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Ken, I'm curious, you've talked about the various places you've lived and traveled. This is just coming in as a question. What influence does place have on people and their embodiment? What's drawn
Mm.
you to move since I know you're in Portugal now? Sounds like you've experienced a lot of different locations. How
I
does the
have.
land play with the body?
It's a great question. You're a very curious person. You have good questions out of
Thank
curiosity.
you.
So you're absolutely right. When I'm doing programs, I always think of the environment because the environment can amplify what the message is. So in Cuba, for example, it was very easy to teach seduction and femininity because you're surrounded by it. You're living it. I'm doing retreats in Cabo Verde, and Cabo Verde, no stress Cabo Verde, and they're laid back and they're kind of flirty. It's great for the embodied femininity, but it's so no stress that you come and it's like it diffuses everything. You need that for that. When we're talking about femininity, you have to be in a place that doesn't have that kind of stress. The divine connection is in Lisbon because it's enchanting and it's a very feminine city.
Mm,
So like I definitely consider Lisbon to be a feminine city, not a masculine city. New York is a masculine
mm,
city. Lisbon is a feminine city. And in that sense, when you want to learn how to connect and you want to learn how to feel one another, you want to be in a place that's very felt. Lisbon is very
mm,
felt. People feel one another. Like if people feel you need help, they'll react to you. They'll help. They'll step in. There's community. There's amazing food. There's like all this fusion of cultures. Like people come from Angola and Cabo Verde and Portugal, but you've got all the expats that have come here. Like there's something in Lisbon that's really
mm,
magical and feminine that definitely supports what I'm talking about for the divine connection, kind of amplifying that sense of divine
mm,
in the air. And you're absolutely right that when you're in an environment that doesn't support that, it kind of like trying to put a plant into, to put the seeds and expect the flower
mm,
to come out, and then it's not the kind of soil where that seed could
mm,
flourish. And I've experienced that when I lived in Canada because I'm very direct. I come from the culture that someone asks you, how are you doing? And if you're feeling shitty, go like shitty today. And then I was in Canada and it was always expected to be politically correct and it just wasn't me. So I didn't want to be that way. And it was a choice. And then a lot of people
mm,
didn't like me as a result. Right. And having that kind of energy
mm.
was tough because it's like you want to feel at home where you're
Yeah,
living. And it's harder to shine when you feel that kind of energy. When I'm
yeah.
like here in Portugal, for example, I feel at home. I can feel I can have roots, even though I wasn't born here, which is really beautiful because not every place aligns with our soul. So whether it's to live or whether it's because you're running a retreat, I think that it's extremely
Mm,
important the environment that you're in.
mm. I grew up in Minnesota, which is 90 minutes. My hometown is 90 minutes from Canada. So we have that whole passive aggressive, everything's nice and fine
So
to
you
your
know what I'm talking
face.
about.
I
Yes.
know exactly what you're talking about.
hmm
Um, so if someone is, let's just say, I don't know why, but I'm going back to the type of person who knows that they're numbing out their body, they're overriding their nervous system, they're pushing past, going faster than, and I know a lot of people in this camp who like they know that, but they're scared to slow down. They're scared to feel because of what it might cost them business wise, right? There's this idea of like, if I'm pushing and hustling, I'm going to do better than if I'm slow and feeling in and trusting my own guidance and my own pace. What advice would you have for someone who's in that camp?
it's not the right conversation to be had with yourself, because it's not about slow or fast. It's about depth. If you're not dropping in, how can you impact another? It depends on what the work is. If you're just selling shoes, and you can sell them, quickly, not a problem. But if, you needing to sell, you need to connect with them emotionally, and you're afraid to connect with yourself, how are you going to really impact? It's not about fast or slow. You can go slower and have stronger impact because you touch somebody so deeply. Right. So it's not
Yes.
about slow or fast. When somebody is afraid to slow down and feel what is there, typically they cannot go there by themselves. Let's start with that. It's because there's
Yeah.
something that happened that was their nervous system couldn't digest it and integrate it, that they avoid it. And they need help to go there with someone who's going to feel that with them. And there's a reason why they can't. So to know it's not so much, and there's shame that comes up, especially if it's someone who's high achieving. Because high achieving people, like they say, they do, that, and suddenly you have an area in your life that's blocked. We talked before about people who have big traumas, but sometimes you talk to people and they go, no, my childhood was great. And I go, okay, let's dig a little bit deeper. And what it is not trauma in the sense of like someone died or like something dramatic, but it's more a matter of what that experience was traumatic for that person. I had a client, for example, she got completely blocked for decades when it came to love relationships, and she couldn't release it because when she was younger, she stood her ground for something that she knew was right, and the way she was treated by other members in the family was not right. And she stood up in front of all the adults and she stood her ground. She said what she needed to say, not even in an aggressive way. And they shot her down, all of them. And it was because they were pleasing one another, because they were afraid of breaking the relationships. So she gave up her own voice. And as losing her voice, she was struggling. So she was in a great company. She was doing very well and succeeding, but she couldn't get to the next level. And then in love, she was stuck for decades and she couldn't get to the relationship that she wanted. Within 6 months of somatic healing, she found the love of her life. She's married to him. She advanced in a company like you wouldn't believe, because we're able to go to where she couldn't go and feel the things that she couldn't, and she couldn't do it on her own, and then release them. So it's important to remember that when that happens, is not to feel shame, not to hide, is to go like, okay, I need someone who can show me the way. The same as when you want to go somewhere on a trail and you don't know, and you're taking a guide to take you, someone who walked before you that knows the path. We just need someone who's going to show us the way and lead us.
I love that example. A lot of times, the people who are being interviewed on podcasts are telling very dramatic stories. And often it is, I'll just say where I grew up, things like, we don't say that here, right? That's not appropriate. A little thing like that can have such a huge ripple effect.
Kids be heard, US thing, kids be heard and not seen. Kids be heard and not seen. That's one of the sentences I hear nonstop from Americans bring this. This is what I grew up with. I was told, this sentence. It repeats a million times, and that could be traumatic at one point, depending on what the situation was in the family.
Yeah. Beautiful. So you have a masterclass on divine femininity, as well as love frequency, and we're going to put the link below here. I would love to hear a little about the Divine Femininity Masterclass. We kind of touched on it a little bit in this interview.
These two masterclasses, yes, they're in the somaticgift.com for people that want to go and join it. And what I wanted to do was really to create for people the opportunity to come to 90 minutes, two different classes, one for women wanting to connect with their divine femininity, and the other one for someone who wants to understand how a love frequency is created in the body that affects kind of love that we attract. There's a love frequency embedded in you, and this is how you attract. And if you're repeating the same exact pattern, why is it that you can't shift it? And you keep, let's say, attracting the same unavailable partners, for example, or toxic partners, right? So that's the love frequency audit. Like, what's a love frequency? How is it gets created? How do we reprogram it? How somatic intelligence help resolve this? The Divine Femininity Masterclass is about doing actual work. So there in the first one, in the first masterclass, there's a little bit of work. This one is like you're really doing a lot of work. So I'm really walking you through different lessons so that you can start to get a taste of the work that we do through somatics, because I think that somatics are not something that we want to just talk about. We want to also be felt. So you'll see that when I'm doing the masterclass, first of all, there's a frequency. I don't just talk about it, talk about it from an embodied place that lands into your body to begin with. But you want to make sure that you're also experiencing somatic work to understand the impact. I love saying this. You say to a little child, you go like, don't touch that fire. You're going to burn. That's going to hurt. And you go like, don't touch that. Don't touch that. What does the child do? They touch it. Why do they touch it? And the parent gets angry. I told you not to touch it. Why do they touch it? They don't understand what it burns means because they've never burned. So when you say to them, they have no felt experience in the body to understand what that means. They have to touch to understand. So after they touch, they go like, now they know what burns means and what dangerous means. Before your body understands, it doesn't matter that you understand here. How many times have you met people? They understand the whole situation. They understand what blocks them. They can tell you what the issue is. They can tell you the whole thing of what the pattern is, and they still can't shift it. Right? Understanding it is not enough.
Yes.
There's a part in the mind and there's a part in the body. And what you need to learn is not just to understand it. Understanding is also very important because you have self-awareness, but you have to learn how to shift it. Shift it is in the body. So I want people to have experiences in both masterclasses where they're trying things, they're starting to feel what somatic work does so that we can build that confidence, right? We talked about people being so jaded, trying so many things out there, and everybody goes like, I can resolve it for you, I can resolve, and then they don't. And then as a result, you start to get jaded and you don't believe anymore. Go like, how do I know that it's going to work for me? So let's work on that. Let's create more confidence. Let's get through that barrier of all these people that got you jaded, and let's start to feel what work does. Because when you feel through the body, you know, you just know. That's the wisdom. That's the knowing in us that we can activate.
Beautiful. Last question I like to ask everyone is, if this is my goal is that these words land in people's ears who maybe they're the only one in their family who's been awakened or thinking about doing the healing work. They're the one to heal that generational trauma, and they don't have a community, maybe people who are talking like this. What would you say to that person?
So just for me to understand, you mean that they've got a block that they, or a trauma they want help with, but they
No,
don't have a community around them? Is that what you mean?
their magic is coming online. They're feeling like intuitive, connected. Maybe they're being drawn in a direction to serve others through that work, and no one around them is doing it. They're
Oh.
like the black sheep in their family.
Oh, that was me. My whole family are lawyers. Love them, but they're all lawyers.
Uh-huh.
That was me. Um, my thing is this, you know, I really believe that we it's part of the journey of finding your voice. So whether that's what I said to you before in Canada, whether it's your family, it's ultimately you have to find your voice where you're able to speak clearly what you believe in and not have to please others. Like we did when we're living in a world right now where there's a lot of misalignments and the world is changing in a way that most of us don't even know how to digest this world and how to feel about it and where we belong in this world and what who we sometimes even hear like people go like, I don't know who I am anymore, like in this world.
Yeah.
We're so used to being plugged into a system, and the system is supposed to tell us what we're supposed to do. And this world now requires more courage. And in this courage, you have to find your inner alignment that's not dependent on the herd. And there's a lot of compliance these days to try and do what everybody else does. But, you know, I'm going to go to the extreme. Hitler was a compliance, right? The Nazis were a compliance where it's like, oh, everybody's doing, let's do that. We're in a world today where there's so many bad things are happening and the world is going in a bad direction. We can't afford anymore to lose our voices. We have to speak up when things are not right. And sometimes at a personal price, you know, of what that means. And for that, we have to create more resilience to be able to stand our ground and have that voice. And you know, I really believe that when someone understands their magic, they're being summoned to do it. And part of the journey is really also being able to step into past the fear. right? So you can speak up,
Yeah.
you can say it, even if nobody agreed with you. I can't even tell you how many times people made fun of me, of who I am. I can't even tell you how many times I've been put down for what I'm doing. My TED Talk, for example, right? It has 12 million views about seduction. And if you go underneath it, there's what I call the green, the red, and the blue. The blue are you're promoting rape, you're a whore, they'll say the worst things about you. The red ones, they're like lovey-dovey, like, oh my God, make me a baby, you're amazing, you're a goddess, you know. And then there's the in-between, the green ones that have insights. They've learned something or they saw something, right? So it's like we got to find our voice. We have to find the way to speak up and not be afraid. I was told before I did my TED Talk, you're going to have 50% lovers and 50% haters if you do this right. Are you ready? And I said, yes.
Yeah.
Right? Are you going to
Beautiful.
speak your message despite the fact that people are going to love you or hate you because you want to basically impact the world? Or are you going to let the world dim your light and you're going to go with the herd and you're going to lose yourself? That magic is being summoned to step up.
Couldn't agree more. That's so good. We'll leave it
Mhm.
right there. Ken, thank you so much for being a guest, for sharing your wisdom and what you do in the world. I can just feel the power and the potency, and I'm so glad we're connected.
Thank you so much for having me here. I loved your questions and your curiosity.
Have an amazing day, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode.